everyone, it's Erica. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you are new. I'm so glad you decided to watch this video. Thank you for supporting me, and I hope you enjoy what I have to say. So I am going to talk about the books that I read in April. It was a really good reading month. I didn't read just a ton of books, but I enjoyed the ones that I did read, except for one, and we'll talk about that one later. So let's get into it. Okay, so I had one DNF this month, and if you don't know what DNF means, it means did not finish. And this is technically it's my first official DNF since even knowing what that word means. There's been books before that I'll start, not finish, but you know. And that is American Boys. I was excited about this one. I thought it was gonna be a really good story, but I was just not interested in it. It felt like a lot of information that I didn't care about. So basically it is the true story of the Lost 74 of the Vietnam War. And it's like two ships there's a shipwreck, people die, people get stranded, whatever. And it got to the point where I was just skimming it, and I actually just went to the part where the shipwreck happened, which happens way later in the book. And I think it would have been better if it would have been shorter. Just so much information that I didn't care about. But the story is interesting, how the shipwreck happened and everything. And also, the author just used a lot of language, swearing, taking God's name in vain. And I understand if they're talking about the people, in the war. If it's things they actually said, I understand that, but she was using it in her own writing and in her own words, and I just didn't like it. And I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna read a book I don't want to read. So I think I am gonna keep it, because I can go back and read the interesting part of the story later. But I don't recommend necessarily. And then the first book that I finished is Private Justice by Terry Blackstock. I loved this book. My heart was pounding. I was when you read something or you watch something and you can just feel the tense moments, and yeah, it was just so good. The storyline is so interesting, and I kind of want to read it again already. But it's you start caring for people in the book, the characters, and then you start to get scared that those characters killed the people. I'm not making sense. Basically, there is the town of New Point, and they're at a parade, and the firefighters are all dressed up as clowns, and one of the firefighters' wives get murdered and the house set on fire. And they investigate, there's funerals, but slowly more firefighters' wives start dying, and they have to get to the bottom of this and figure out why and who. And yeah, basically that's the book, and it's just very intense. Let's just say that. And then I read the second book in the series, Shadow of Doubt. So it's the same people and everything, but I think each book in the series is gonna go to different characters and focus on them. And this has to do with the detective and the detective's wife. Basically, her previous husband was killed by poisoning, and her second husband gets poisoning. And she was accused of the murder the first time, did not get a conviction. And so all these questions come up, and they're trying to figure out if she did it or if someone else did it. And it's just the whole story, and yeah, it's intense. I did figure out who did it, so it wasn't a complete mystery. Definitely made your heart pound as well. Then I read Hearts of Fire by The Voice of the Martyrs. It's basically 8 stories in this book of true stories of women in persecuted countries and the things that they went through, and how they continue to serve God and their faith and love for others. It just really gives you a good perspective and reminds you how blessed we are in a free country, to have the freedom to worship God and to not have to be scared that our church service is going to be overtaken by the government. And so I really enjoyed these stories. I highly recommend this for teenage girls and women. So really love this one. Next, I read a book that I have been wanting to read for a long time. It has been on my shelf since October, and I just kept procrastinating and picking it up, or not picking it up. But I'm so glad I read this because it was so different but so enjoyable, and that is Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. This is primarily a story about a man named Walter McMillian who was wrongly accused of murder, and Bryan Stevenson was his lawyer. And Walter McMillian was sentenced to the death row without a fair trial. And it just showed lots of racism and how the justice system was just completely messed up back then. And the torture that men on death row had, like, it made me angry about how people could be so heartless. And I almost cried. I think I teared up at some of the parts. And there was little side stories about other fights for justice, and those were so interesting. And I'm surprised I liked it as much as I did, but I highly recommend this book. Next, I read Rachel's Tears by Beth Nimmo and Daryl Scott. This is the story of one of the victims in the Columbine shooting in 1999, I think. Yes. And it's kind of her story, and it's also about her journals, and her parents discovered how deep her faith in God was and her relationship with God was after she died in her journals. And basically they're just talking about it, talking about her, different things that happened in her life, the way she impacted people. And it was just really inspiring. And it showed her struggles as well. She was not perfect. And her struggles with smoking and peer pressure and all the things that teenagers face. And yeah, it was just awesome. I've watched the movie called I'm Not Ashamed, I think. Love that movie. But yes, really enjoyed this one. And I got this one at Goodwill, and I saw it and I was like, oh, I know her, you know. And so I had to get it. And then finally, another nonfiction I read this month. I kind of read it throughout the month. I started it like April 4th and finished it May 4th. So, and that is Not a Fan by Kyle Idleman. I've read one other of his books and I really enjoyed it. This one is a really great concept. Basically, it's showing how you can be a fan of Jesus and a follower of Jesus. And basically the entire book is just showing the difference between the two, the difference of being a fan and being a follower of Jesus, and showing what it means to be a follower and different people in the Bible who are fans or followers. And it's just an encouragement. Am I a fan or a follower? And to just strive to be a follower and to follow in Jesus' footsteps and love like he loved, live like he lived. And so, yes, I enjoyed this one as well. Okay, I think that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about books, which is something that I love doing. Let me know what you're excited to read in May. And my reading May is off to a great start. So let me know what you're excited to read, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.